Okay, let's talk about using the SQL Server Activity Monitor, and we're specifically going to use it to track logs. Now, let's start. We're going to start by talking about what a log is, and I'm going to write a query here real quick. And wait for my new query window to open. I'm going to use the AdventureWorks database. And from the AdventureWorks database, I'm going to update my salesLT.product table. And I'm going to set the color equals red. Let me capitalize that. For or where the product ID, there we go, equals 680. So I'm going to real quick throw in a different query here real quick just so you can see what we're doing. So use AdventureWorks, and I'm going to select asterisk from salesLT.product. And they could filter it down, but I'm just going to do the whole thing so we can take a look at it here. And here is product ID number 680. It's currently set to color black. So this query is going to update this to be red. Now, at this point, I can run this query as is. I don't need that other query, so we're going to get rid of it at the moment. So I can run this query as is and it will execute. And what happens in the background is SQL will lock that record while this query is running so that nobody else, and will require an exclusive lock because it's updating it. So it will lock that record and allow nobody else to access that record until it's done with the update. Now, SQL Server by default will auto-commit transactions. So everything you do is a transaction. And so the auto-commit transaction means that if I run this query right now, it'll lock the record, it will make the change, it will commit the change, and then it will unlock the record. And all of this happens very, very quickly. So this is the default behavior for SQL Server, but we can override that behavior and we can use something called explicit transactions. So rather than running this query, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add a new line that says begin transaction. Now, once I begin transaction, I have to explicitly say when to commit the transaction or when to roll back the change. So if I don't add an explicit commit transaction or rollback at the end of this query, the query won't actually complete, right? It'll lock the record, it'll make the change, but it won't actually do anything, it won't commit the change, and it'll just leave the record locked. All right, now that's important because, in fact, let me execute this query here, and that's going to start, and it says one row affected. But if I go and create a new query, and I'm going to use the AdventureWorks database, and from the let me put a semicolon at the end of that, and from the AdventureWorks database, I'm going to select asterisk from salesLT.product, product table. This time I'm going to specify, let me break this down to make it a little easier to read, where the product ID equals 680. So I want to look at the exact same record. And when I go to execute it, it says executing query, and it just kind of hangs here. Now, what's happening is it's trying to access that particular record that I'm updating over here. And because I did not say commit transaction or rollback, it still has this locked, and that transaction is like sitting there doing nothing, but it's still an active transaction. So if I come here, I can't actually access that, and eventually SQL Server is going to generate an error. There we go. Execution timeout expired. We couldn't do that. Now if I do another one, oh shoot. I'm trying to remember another record. Let me add a new query here. And I don't even know if I can select asterisk from. Let me do this. Close that query. I'm not going to use it. I am just going to roll back this transaction. So in here, I'm going to add the command rollback and rerun the query. Now, because I rolled back the transaction, it didn't actually make the change. So now if I come here and execute the query, oops, put that back in, where product ID equals 680, now it'll work just fine. And because I rolled back the transaction, notice it left the color as black. Rollback means, yeah, just don't do this. Okay, so we've seen now how I can lock a record, or how records get locked, and how that keeps other things from running against it. Now, this becomes an issue in large databases or very active databases, because you might have a situation where one person is trying to run a process and auto-committing transactions. These things happen very quickly, but there still is a little bit of a delay. And so if you're running a large process, it might lock a record or a table or whatever. It might lock an object in the database long enough that somebody else might try to access it and is going to hang. Okay, so let's talk about how we can view this and see what's happening. So there's a couple of different ways. There are a bunch of queries that we can run that will help us find this. I'm going to take rollback off of here, and I am going to execute this again. Now, there's a bunch of queries that we can run to discover locks and things like that, but there's another tool we have available to us in the SSMS that I find particularly useful, and that is the Activity Monitor. So I'm going to come up here to my instance, and I'm going to right-click and open up Activity Monitor. And this is going to show me my percent processor time, my waiting tasks. Now, a waiting task is a task that is waiting for, it can't access something that's locked, so it's waiting for that. It's going to show me my database I/O and my batch requests. So this is a really, think resource monitor or task manager for SQL. I'm going to expand my processes, and this is going to show me all my processes. Then I'm going to expand resource weights. And so you're going to see wait time, recent wait time, average wait count, and then for which type, backups, buffer I/O, latch, lock, so on and so forth. All right, so using these, I have this running. And so I think I have this one running. I think I started it. Let me go ahead and execute it again and make sure it's still started. Now I'm going to come here and execute this query. Now this is hanging, so I go to my activity monitor, and it takes a second for this to update. And here we go. I have this process right here, and this is suspended. It's a select query, and this will tell me what kind of lock, and this will tell me, I'm going to expand this, what's blocking it. So this is being blocked by process number 68. Now, eventually this is going to fall away, by the way, because this will time out. But we can see that this is being blocked by 68. So this tells me, and it just went away. So this tells me that when this is trying to access data, it can't. It's being blocked by process 68. Now up here, this is really nice because this tells us 69, 68, so we can see exactly what's going on. The other thing I want you to see down here is that our lock wait jumped up to the top. And it did that, let me start this again so we can see it. And it did that because all of a sudden we have wait time right here. And so this is saying, hey, we're actually having processes waiting because of existing locks. This tells us which processes are waiting and what's locking them. Now, in a active database, and this is just a demo database, so the only way I can create this is if I do the gymnastics I just did to generate a problem. But in an active database, we're going to have lots of things being updated, and so we're going to have lots of locks, and we're occasionally going to have processes locked. By the way, real quick, I just saw it. Notice right here I have waiting tasks, and that's bumped up twice because I've had a waiting task twice. So I'm going to have issues where people try to run a query and it's taking longer than it should, or it times out or something like that. A query or another type of process. And so if that becomes, a little bit of that just might happen naturally. And there are some things that database developers can do to try to mitigate this a little bit. But If it becomes a problem, we need to start investigating, and the activity monitor is a great way we can start investigating because this will show us, and let's pretend like we're in a live active production database. It's going to show us all of our processes that are running, whether they're coming from SSMS or from other clients or whatever. It's going to show us which database it's happening on. So let me expand that. I can look at my database. I can look at the login and see who's doing what. And I can work with their existing process and find out what's causing things to lock. I can right click on an existing process and view the details of the process. This is showing me my SQL command that I ran. And if I need to, I can choose to kill the process. So this is a great way to explore what's causing those locks and how we can resolve them. And then down here, obviously, it's going to show me my resource weights, which, what do I have things waiting for? What's creating my bottlenecks? My data IO here and up at the top. Let me go and collapse these two because I'm done with them at the moment. And then my batch requests. Okay, so lots of different things here that I can use to monitor my performance inside my SQL server. In addition, by the way, to using the Windows Performance Monitor, which has a bunch of SQL specific counters that can be used as well. So this is where we can monitor and then begin trying to troubleshoot and track down problems with locks and weights. All right, so I'm going to resolve this real quick. So I'm going to say roll back because I really don't care for the color to change and execute. And as soon as I do, let's go back to Activity Monitor. Remember that was process 68. If I look at my processes, it's still here. I still have it active. But we can see the last thing that it ran, the fact that it did run a rollback. Now we can execute our next query and see that everything is working fine. Okay, that's how you can use the activity monitor in SQL SMS for SQL Server. That's how we can use the activity monitor to look for what might be causing delays, look for locks, look for weights, and maybe begin troubleshooting and help resolving some of those issues if we are currently struggling with them.